The hall was decorated like a dream. Soft golden lights hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over white drapes and fresh flowers. A slow love song floated from the speakers, and guests swayed gently in their seats as Sandra and David walked in, fingers interlocked, faces glowing with joy. Phones were out. Cameras flashed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please rise for the newest couple in town, Mr. and Mrs. David Johnson." Sandra's dress sparkled under the lights as she laughed shyly. David couldn't stop looking at her, his heart full, his eyes soft. To him, this was the best decision he'd ever made. Years of dating, prayers, counsel from mentors, all leading to this one moment. They did their first dance. They fed each other cake. They smiled till their cheeks hurt. To everyone watching, it was a perfect wedding. A fresh beginning. A clean page. But in one corner of the hall, just behind a group of whispering bridesmaids, stood Eric.
Eric, her ex.
He wore a neatly ironed shirt, smart trousers, and a plastic smile. He clapped when others clapped. He laughed when others laughed. He even raised his glass during the toast. But deep inside, his heart was a battlefield. At one point, his eyes rested on Sandra's ring. She lifted her hand to wipe sweat from her forehead, and the ring caught the light. That same hand used to belong to him, in a way. It used to text him all day. It used to stroke his hair when he was stressed. It used to hold his face when she said, "I'm not going anywhere." Now, that hand was somebody else's promise. Eric swallowed hard and took another sip of his drink. You might ask, why was he there in the first place? Because Sandra had insisted. "Babe, please," she had said weeks before the wedding, resting her head on David's shoulder. "Eric and I are cool now. We broke up long ago. We're both mature, we've moved on. I don't want any bad blood." David hesitated. "I don't like the idea of your ex at our wedding." Sandra laughed. "So should I also ban anyone I've ever dated from entering the hall? That's childish. He's just a friend now. He even has a girlfriend." David didn't want to look insecure. He wanted to prove he trusted her, that he was a confident man, not a jealous boy. So, against his instincts, he agreed. On the wedding day, as he saw Eric in the crowd, their eyes met briefly. There was a polite nod. No words. Just that quiet tension that only men in that position can truly understand. Later that night, when the DJ turned up the volume and the dance floor filled with guests, Eric watched Sandra and David from a distance. The way her head rested on David's chest. The way David's hands stayed gently at the small of her back. The way they whispered things only the two of them could hear. A thought flashed through Eric's mind. That could have been me. And with that thought came the first crack. Not in their marriage, but in the boundary that should have existed between the past and the present. Because here is the truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes, the danger to a marriage doesn't come from enemies. It comes from doors that were left half open. When the reception ended, Sandra hugged Eric at the exit. "Thank you for coming," she said warmly. "I'm happy for you," he replied, trying to convince himself as much as her. But as he walked away into the night, her laughter still echoing behind him, Eric knew something for sure. He wasn't done with his feelings. Even if she was now someone else's wife. And that quiet, unspoken reality would soon prove that what seems harmless at the beginning can grow into a storm that destroys everything you thought was secure. The first few weeks after the wedding felt like a sweet dream. New bedsheets. New plates. New routines. Sandra woke up earlier than usual, excited to make breakfast. David helped with the dishes. They prayed together before leaving for work, and at night, they talked about their future, children, travel, business, savings. It was calm. Then, gradually, normal life set in. Deadlines piled up at David's office. Traffic got worse. Sandra's workload increased. Some nights, they came home too tired to talk, settling for quick meals, short conversations, and scrolling on their phones until sleep took over. One Tuesday evening, while David was in the bathroom, Sandra's phone lit up on the bed. "Eric, how's married life, Madam Wife?" She smiled before she even picked it up. By the time David came out, towel around his waist, she was typing quickly, grinning at the screen. "Who's making you smile like that?" he teased. She locked the phone instantly. Oh, nobody. Just a funny meme. He shrugged, not thinking much of it. But over the next days, the messages continued. Eric, you remember that time we got lost on the way to that beach? Sandra, huh? How can I forget? You almost drove us into a bush. Eric, you used to say you'd never travel with anyone else. Sandra, things change. Don't start. Eric, relax. We're just talking. We're just talking. That one sentence has destroyed many homes. It sounds innocent. It sounds harmless. Texting is not cheating, right? No touching. No kissing. Just words. But words build bridges. Words reopen closed doors. Words resurrect feelings that should have remained buried. One night, as they lay in bed, David noticed Sandra smiling again at her phone. Who is that? You've been chatting all evening, he said, less casually this time. Oh, it's Eric, she replied without thinking. David turned to face her. Eric, your ex? Yes, now. Relax. We're just talking. He was asking about the wedding photos. I don't like this, David murmured. Sandra rolled her eyes. Don't start again. You know we ended things ages ago. We're adults, not kids. I can't start acting like I never knew him. Instead of sitting down to deeply discuss boundaries, she brushed his concerns aside, like dust on a chair. But you cannot dismiss what makes your spouse uncomfortable and still expect the relationship to feel safe. Over time, we're just talking turned into late-night chats. Inside jokes that David didn't understand. Complaints about her new married life that she never voiced to her husband. On days when David annoyed her, she found herself running to her phone. Eric, you sound stressed. Are you sure you married the right man? Sandra, don't start trouble. Eric, I'm just saying. You used to be happier. Little seeds. Small suggestions. Quiet poison. On the surface, nothing had changed dramatically. Sandra still cooked. She still laughed with David sometimes. She still wore her ring. But her emotional center was slowly shifting. Instead of running toward her husband when things were hard, she was running outward, to someone who once held her heart and still had a piece of it. If you are watching this and you're married, ask yourself a hard question. When you are upset with your spouse, who is the first person you talk to? Because that person has more power over your marriage than you think. One evening, David tried again. Sandra, he began gently, I don't feel comfortable with how much you talk to Eric. I don't talk to my exes like this. It's not about insecurity, it's about respect. Can we set some boundaries? Sandra sighed loudly. So now I can't talk to a friend again? This is why people say marriage is prison. I won't cut him off just to make you feel big. If you trust me, you should relax. Trust. People use that word like a weapon sometimes. But trust is not blind. Trust works together with wisdom and boundaries. From that night, David stopped complaining. Not because he was okay, but because he felt unheard. He folded his pain inside, and silence slowly settled between them. Sandra, on the other hand, took his silence as approval. She chatted more freely. She laughed more at her phone. She shared more about her private struggles with Eric. Her fights with David. Her fears about money. Her worries about getting pregnant. Eric became her counselor. Her comfort. Her safe place. What she didn't realize was this. Each time she opened up to Eric instead of David, she was shifting the foundation of her marriage, brick by brick, word by word. And all the while, she kept repeating to herself, we're just talking. I'm not doing anything wrong. But emotional infidelity rarely starts with the body. It starts with attention, then connection, then dependence. By the time the body joins, the heart has already left the marriage long ago. It didn't happen overnight. At first, it was just one small lie. Who were you on the phone with? David asked one Saturday afternoon as she walked back in from the balcony. Nobody, she replied too quickly. Just my colleague from work. In reality, she had been laughing with Eric about a silly video he sent. She told herself it wasn't serious. What David doesn't know won't hurt him. But that is exactly how secrets grow, in the dark corners where truth is avoided. Soon it became normal. Clearing chat history. Deleting call logs. Changing her phone password, for security reasons. One day, she was in the kitchen when her phone buzzed on the counter. David, passing by, glanced at the screen. "Eric, I miss talking to you like before." Before he could say anything, Sandra rushed over, grabbed the phone, and forced a laugh. "You like reading people's messages now?" she said sharply. He held her gaze. "Why is he saying he misses you?" "It's just a joke," she said. "You're overthinking everything." But that night, as Sandra lay in bed scrolling and David stared at the ceiling, the distance between them grew, not in kilometers, but in silence. Their conversations became transactional. "Did you pay the NEPA bill?" "Yes." "Have you eaten?" "No." "Oya warmed the stew." "Okay." The jokes that once bounced around their living room went quiet. The long, deep conversations about dreams and future children disappeared. Whenever David tried to initiate anything deep, Sandra usually had one answer: "I'm tired." But tiredness didn't stop her from texting Eric for hours. Slowly, David began to withdraw too. He started spending more time at work. Some evenings he stayed back with colleagues, just to avoid the tension at home. He still loved his wife, but he did not feel chosen anymore. He felt like he was sharing his own home with a shadow in the background. Emotional cheating is tricky because there is no lipstick stain, no strange perfume, no obvious evidence. Yet the betrayal is just as heavy. Sandra started doing little things she didn't even notice. Comparing David to Eric in her mind. Getting irritated at David for things she tolerated in the past. Seeing Eric as the one who understands her. Eric fed into this. "You're a strong woman, Sandra," he would say. "Sometimes I feel like your husband doesn't know what he has." When she complained about David forgetting something important, Eric replied, "If it were me, I would never do that." Those words stayed with her. If it were me. If it were me. She started seeing him as the standard and her husband as the failure. One rainy evening, David turned to her in bed and said softly, "Sandra, do you still love me?" She was shocked. "What kind of question is that?" "Because I feel like I'm losing you," he confessed. "You're here physically, but you're far away. You laugh more with your phone than with me. I don't know what's happening, but it hurts." For a brief moment, guilt pricked her heart. She almost told him everything. She almost admitted how deep her conversations with Eric had gone. She almost deleted his number that night. But instead, she brushed it aside. "Babe, you're overthinking. I'm just stressed. Work is a lot. Don't make an issue where there is none." And with that dismissal, she chose comfort over confrontation. She chose temporary escape over long-term healing. From then, David learned a dangerous habit: suffering in silence. He stopped asking questions. He stopped raising concerns. On the outside, they looked like a normal couple, posting birthday wishes on social media, attending weddings together, smiling in group pictures. But behind closed doors, affection had reduced to routine hugs and shallow kisses. Intimacy became mechanical. No depth. No true connection. Meanwhile, her relationship with Eric, still not physical, deepened emotionally. They now had pet names again. They shared memes, secrets, frustrations. Sometimes she sent him selfies her husband never saw. She didn't realize that she was slowly building an emotional marriage outside her real one. And in many cases, emotional affairs hurt more than physical ones because they show a choice, not just of body, but of heart. If you are listening to this story, maybe you see yourself in Sandra. Maybe you have an innocent friend from the past that you defend more than you protect your marriage. Ask yourself honestly, does your spouse know the full level of your conversations? Would you be comfortable reading those messages out loud in front of your partner? If the answer is no, then something is already wrong. Because whatever needs hiding doesn't belong in a covenant built on trust. Sandra believed she was still in control. She believed she could handle it. She believed it would never go too far. But secrets are like fire close to dry leaves. You don't need to plan for the house to burn down. You just need to keep playing too close to the flames. And soon, one night, under heavy rain and darker emotions, the line she swore she would never cross was crossed. By their first wedding anniversary, Sandra and David looked like a success story on the outside. They had nice anniversary photos on Instagram. Matching white outfits. Cake with 1 year down, forever to go. Hashtags like #blessed, #myperson, #foreverus. Friends dropped comments. God when? See love oh. Una too sweet. But if you zoomed past the filters, past the captions, and past the carefully posed smiles, you would see something else entirely. Small, quiet cracks in the foundation of their home. It started showing during the simplest moments. One evening, they sat on opposite sides of the living room after dinner. The TV was on, but nobody was really watching. David scrolled through sports updates, Sandra through chats. Babe, David said, eyes still on his phone, we should plan something for the weekend. Maybe go out, just the two of us. It's been a while. Sandra barely looked up. This weekend? I'm not sure. I might be busy. Busy with what? It's Saturday. She shrugged. I promised I'd help a friend with something. Which friend? She hesitated for a split second, then said, just a friend from work. Don't start interrogating me. The tone stung more than the words. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it, defensive, irritated, as if he was asking for too much by wanting time with his own wife. The truth? There was no friend from work. She had made plans to meet Eric to catch up properly at a quiet restaurant on the mainland. She stood up and walked away to place her plate in the kitchen. David watched her go, feeling a hollow ache he couldn't name. In his mind, questions grew louder. When did talking to my wife become a burden? When did us become you and me? What changed? He tried to comfort himself. Maybe it's stress. Maybe she just needs time. Maybe I'm overthinking. But one thing you must understand is this. When a spouse starts hiding and defending another person more than they defend your peace, something is already wrong. The cracks widened further during a visit to David's parents. They sat in the sitting room, eating jollof rice and fried chicken. David's mother, a cheerful, talkative woman, was in her element. So, Sandra, she said, smiling warmly, when are you people giving us grandchildren? 1 year has gone oh. Sandra forced a smile. Mummy, it's still early. We're not rushing. David chuckled nervously. Mummy, leave her now. It will happen when it's time. His father cleared his throat. Make sure you two are praying together. Marriage is not only about love, it's about partnership and agreement. Don't let outsiders enter your home. Sandra felt that last line like a slap. Outsiders. Her mind flashed briefly to Eric. She shook it off quickly, pretending her sudden silence was just shyness. On the way home, the car was too quiet. Why are you not talking? David asked gently. Sandra sighed. Your parents are already talking about children. Is it by force? I don't like that kind of pressure. They mean well, David said. They're just excited. Besides, there's truth in what my dad said. We need to be united. No outsiders. No interference. The word outsiders repeated again in her ears. She became defensive. So you think I'm the one bringing outsiders? Because I still talk to my ex, ABI? David's hands tightened around the steering. Did I mention him? You're the one calling his name. Why? Because that's what you're thinking. He sighed. Can we be honest for once? Since you reconnected with him, you've changed. You hide your phone. You're always chatting. You compare me to other people indirectly. I feel like I'm contending with someone you claim is in your past, yet he has more of your attention than I do. Silence filled the car. For a moment, Sandra felt exposed. She could see it clearly now, the emotional shift, the secret jokes with Eric, the lies she told. But instead of confronting herself, she turned her defense into attack. David, you're insecure. That's your problem. You think every man wants me. You don't trust me. You see this marriage? If you keep behaving like this, you'll push me away. He swallowed his pain. I'm not saying you're cheating. I'm saying this friendship is affecting us. She laughed bitterly. So, should I delete his number? Block him? Act like he never existed? Is that what you want? He looked at her briefly, then back at the road. If staying in touch with him is more important than protecting our marriage, then we already have our answer. Those words hung heavily in the air. Sandra didn't reply. She stared out the window, angry, not because he was wrong, but because he was right. Back at home, things did not improve. Arguments became more frequent, even over small issues. A late reply to a message. A forgotten promise. A comment said in the wrong tone. And underneath every argument was the real issue that no one wanted to face. Trust was leaking. Respect was thinning. Resentment was growing. At night, David began to sleep facing the other side of the bed more often. Sandra noticed, but instead of reaching out, she wrapped herself in the glow of her phone screen. One night, as thunder rolled outside and rain beat against the windows, she lay in bed, staring at Eric's message. Eric, I don't know how you're coping. Honestly, if I were your husband, I'd handle you better. You deserve more attention, more support. She typed slowly, Sandra, sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. The moment she sent it, she felt something shift inside her. That statement, that small, typed confession, was a betrayal long before any kiss. Because the day you start entertaining the possibility that someone outside your marriage is the better choice, you loosen your grip on the covenant you vowed to protect. And like a house whose foundation is quietly breaking underneath, Sandra's marriage stood tall in the eyes of the world. But the cracks were spreading. It was only a matter of time before everything above ground began to collapse. It happened on a night that didn't look dangerous. That's the thing about turning points, they often come dressed like ordinary days. It was Friday evening. The sky was heavy with dark clouds. Traffic was a mess. David called Sandra. Babe, they've delayed our presentation. I have to stay in the office. I may not come back early. Don't wait up for me. Sandra was already tired from the week. She felt drained, emotionally and physically. Their home had become a cold, tense space. Conversation with David felt like walking through a minefield. Okay, she replied flatly. No problem. After the call, the silence in the house became louder. No generator hum. No TV show. Just raindrops starting to hit the roof. Her phone buzzed. Eric, rainy weather. Perfect time for gist. What's up? She stared at the message for a moment. She knew the right move. Ignore, sleep, pray, call her husband back, watch a movie, anything but this. But loneliness is a dangerous counselor. She replied. Sandra, I'm just here. David is working late. It's just me and my thoughts. Eric, you sound down. I hate that. Wish I was there to make you laugh. Sandra, oh, I doubt it. Eric, give me 15 minutes. I'm not far from your area. Let me drop by with Suya. At least you won't be alone. Her heart skipped. She knew it was wrong. Married woman. Alone in the house. At night. With her ex. Everything in her mind screamed, don't do it. But another voice, softer yet stubborn, whispered, you're not doing anything bad. It's just Suya. It's just gist. You're both adults. You can control yourself. She typed, then deleted. Typed again. Sandra, okay. Not long, please. The moment she pressed send, she opened a spiritual door whose consequences she did not calculate. 15 minutes later, thunder cracked across the sky as Eric knocked at the door. She opened it, and the smell of roasted meat and spice hit her nose. He wore a simple black hoodie, jeans, and that familiar smirk she once found irresistible. Madam Wife, he grinned, stepping inside, you're glowing. Marriage is treating you well. She forced a small smile. You and this your mouth. He passed her the nylon bag. Before hunger finishes you. They settled on opposite sides of the sofa, the suya steaming between them on a plate. The dim light, the sound of rain, the closed curtains, all of it felt too intimate, a little too safe for two people with shared history and unresolved feelings. They talked. At first, it was light. Traffic. Random gist. Then, slowly it moved deeper. So how's married life for real? He asked, his tone softer. Sandra hesitated, then exhaled. It's not what I expected. He watched her closely. Tell me. She looked down at her fingers, playing with the edge of a tissue. We argue a lot. I feel like David doesn't listen. He complains about everything I do. Sometimes I feel like a prisoner in my own house. Eric leaned forward slightly. I knew it. You changed when you started planning the wedding. It's like you were trying to convince yourself. Honestly, I always felt you settled. Those words entered like a knife. Settled, she repeated. Yes, he said calmly. We both know what we had. The connection. The chemistry. But you wanted something stable, someone your parents would approve of. Now see. You're not even happy. She swallowed. It's more complicated than that. He shook his head. I just hate seeing you like this. You deserve to be cherished, Sandra. The way he said her name, familiar, gentle, dangerous. Her eyes began to water. The emotional load she'd been carrying, the guilt, the frustration, the unspoken things, suddenly became too heavy. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, she whispered. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing at this marriage thing. He moved closer, slowly, like someone approaching a frightened animal. You're not failing, he said softly. You just married a man who doesn't know how to handle a queen. He brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. She should have pulled away. She didn't. That one touch awakened memories. Those nights they'd spent talking till dawn. The way he used to hold her when she cried. The familiarity of being with someone who knew her before, Mrs., was attached to her name. Eric, don't, she muttered weakly. I'm sorry, he whispered. I just hate seeing you hurt. His hands stayed on her face longer than it should have. Their eyes locked. That fragile moment between right and wrong stretched into a dangerous silence. And then slowly he leaned in. She could have turned her head away. She could have stood up, walked to the door and ended it there. Instead, she closed her eyes. Their lips met. It was soft at first, then desperate. Years of buried emotion, uncut ties, and unresolved feelings poured into one kiss that should never have happened. When they finally pulled apart, breathing heavily, reality crashed in. Sandra's hands shook. Oh my God! What did we just do? Eric looked at her, a mix of triumph and guilt in his eyes. We just proved what I've always known. It's not over between us. She stood up quickly, pacing. No. I'm married. This is wrong. I can't. He stood too, grabbing her arm gently. Relax. It was just a kiss. We didn't sleep together. Besides, if your marriage was so perfect, this wouldn't have happened. She stared at him, tears in her eyes. You can't say that. Then explain it, he said quietly. Explain why you let me in. Why you text me every day. Why you tell me things you don't tell your husband. Sandra, whether you like it or not, a part of you still belongs here. Those words broke her. Because deep down, she knew he was touching a truth she'd refused to face. She had never really closed the chapter. He left shortly after, promising to call her the next day. She locked the door behind him and slid to the floor, sobbing. The house felt heavier now. The walls seemed to be watching her. She took her ring off, stared at it for a long second, then put it back on. I'll never do that again, she whispered to herself. But that night was a turning point. Not just because of the kiss, but because of what followed. Fear, shame, dependence. Because once someone outside your marriage holds your secret, they also hold some power over you. And that innocent connection you refuse to cut becomes a chain. 2 weeks passed after the kiss. 2 weeks of mental torture. Sandra tried to act normal. She cooked, cleaned, smiled occasionally, and responded when David spoke. But inside, she was in pieces. She became jumpy whenever her phone rang. She deleted messages more aggressively. Her prayers, once frequent, dried up completely. Each time she knelt to talk to God, one word hovered like a wall between them: adultery. Even though the act hadn't gone all the way, her heart knew she had stepped out of her covenant. Eric, on the other hand, became bolder. Eric, when can I see you again? Sandra, we shouldn't. Eric, you say that, but you always reply. You need me. Stop lying to yourself. He started using the kiss as leverage. He didn't directly threaten her, but the implication was there. I know what happened. I can expose you. Don't ignore me. So, she kept replying. She tried to manage him, to keep things calm, to avoid escalation. But secrets don't stay buried forever. One Thursday, David had to travel for a 3-day work conference in another state. He kissed her forehead before leaving. "Take care of yourself, okay? Call me if you need anything." She nodded, feeling like she didn't deserve even that small gesture. Later that evening, as the house settled into silence, her phone buzzed. "Eric, I'm missing you. That kiss has been on my mind every day." Her heart dropped. "Sandra, stop saying that. It was a mistake. Please." "Eric, maybe a mistake for you. Not for me. I want more time with you. Tomorrow night. Same place. I'll book a hotel, no pressure. Just talk. Whatever happens, happens." She stared at the message in horror. Before she could reply, another text came. "Eric, and don't pretend you don't think about it too." She turned her phone face down, breathing heavily. She knew she was close to a line she might never come back from. She wanted to cut him off. Block him. Confess everything to her husband. Start again. But fear chained her. What if David leaves me? What if my family finds out? What will the church say? She paced back and forth, trapped between guilt and fear. Finally she typed, "Sandra, no hotel. No more meeting. Don't text me again, please. Let's just go back to being normal friends or nothing at all." He replied within seconds. "Eric, wow. So after everything you'll just switch off? Sandra, don't play with me. I have nothing to lose. You do." That line nearly made her drop the phone. She was about to type again when she heard a sound she wasn't expecting. The front gate opening. She froze. David? No, he wasn't supposed to be home till the next day. Her phone slipped from her hand and fell face up on the sofa, the conversation still open. The front door opened. David stepped in, tired but smiling faintly, suitcase in hand. "Surprise," he said. "The conference finished early. I wanted to come home and see my wife." Sandra's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. "We're back," she stammered. "Just, I thought you'd be happy," he said, closing the door behind him. "Why do you look like you saw a ghost?" Before she could answer, his eyes drifted to the sofa, to the phone, to the open screen. He slowly walked over and picked it up. "David, wait," she said, stepping forward. But it was too late. There in plain view. "Eric, don't play with me. I have nothing to lose. You do." David's face changed. His eyes scanned upwards, flicking through previous messages. Her mind screamed, "No, no, no," as she watched his expression shift from confusion to realization to something much darker. He didn't need all the details. He didn't need full context. The pattern was clear. The intimacy in tone. The references to the kiss. Her attempts to calm him. His manipulative replies. David's hands began to shake. "Sandra, what is this?" Her mouth went dry. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" he demanded, voice shaking. "Explain to me why your ex is talking like this. Explain what he means by that kiss. Explain why you've been hiding your phone for months." Tears sprang to her eyes. "I made a mistake. It was one time. I was lonely, we were fighting, you were always busy, and he raised his hand. Not to hit her, but to stop the torrent of excuses. "Don't you dare blame me for this," he said quietly, pain heavy in his voice. "Don't you dare drag my name into your decision to betray me." She sobbed. "I'm sorry. I regret it. I swear, nothing else happened. We didn't. I don't care if you went all the way or not," he said, voice breaking. "You gave another man what belonged to me, access to your heart, your secrets, your vulnerability. You let him into our marriage. You kissed him under my roof." He dropped the phone on the table like it burned him. "How long?" he asked. "How long has this emotional affair been going on?" She couldn't answer. Her silence was confession enough. He nodded slowly, like someone finally understanding why his heart had been restless for months. "You made me feel crazy," he whispered. "Each time I talked about him, you called me insecure. You gaslight me into doubting my own instincts. Meanwhile, you were hiding this." "I was wrong," she cried. "Please, let's fix it. We can go for counseling. I'll block him, change my number, anything you want. Now, he said bitterly. You want to cut him off now? After he has already crossed every possible boundary. She reached for him, but he stepped back. I need space, he said hoarsely. I can't even breathe right now. He walked into the bedroom, grabbed a small bag, threw some clothes inside, and headed back toward the door. David, please, she begged, falling to her knees. Don't go. Don't leave. Don't let this be the end of us. He looked at her with eyes full of hurt. I didn't end us, Sandra. You did. The day you decided your ex deserved your loyalty more than your husband, something died. Right now, I need to think. I need to ask myself if I can live with this. He opened the door. And just so you know, he added quietly, this is not just about adultery. It's about trust. It's about the fact that you chose to keep a door open that I begged you to close. The door closed behind him with a soft click. But to Sandra, it sounded like a final verdict. She lay on the floor, sobbing, the weight of her choices crashing down fully at last. All the justifications. All the we're just talking. All the you're overreacting. They suddenly looked very small, very foolish, very destructive. Because at the end of the day, one truth stood tall above everything else. You cannot protect your marriage and protect your ex at the same time. One will always suffer. And on that day, in that empty house filled with echoes and regret, Sandra finally realized which one she had sacrificed. Months passed. The house, once filled with 2 toothbrushes, 2 sets of shoes by the door, and the sound of shared laughter, became a museum of memories. Sandra lived there alone. At first, she held on to hope that David would come back. They went for counseling. Families got involved. Pastors mediated. Friends tried to encourage. David attended sessions, listened quietly, and even admitted his own flaws. Yes, I was absent sometimes. Yes, I buried myself in work. Yes, communication broke down. But there was a wound he could not ignore, a wound called betrayal. Trust is like glass. You can glue it, but the cracks will still show. One night, after a long counseling session, David stood outside the car, staring into the distance. I don't hate you, Sandra, he said softly. I still care. But every time I imagine you in this house with him, I feel sick. Tears ran down her face. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to be married to you without replaying that scene in my mind, he replied. I'm not God. I'm trying to forgive, but forgetting is not in my power. They tried separation for a while. Lived apart. Gave it time. But time did not heal as quickly as everyone hoped. One afternoon, the papers were signed. Their marriage, once celebrated with cameras and hashtags, came to an official end with signatures and silence. The girl who once wrote #ForeverUs now stared at a document that said dissolution of marriage. Eric? He disappeared long before the final signatures. He didn't show up when things got really messy. He didn't attend any meeting. He didn't answer when she called after the confrontation. He moved on. That's what many exes do when the drama becomes too real. One night, in a moment of desperation, she called him with a hidden number. He picked up, annoyed. What is it? He snapped. Eric, everything is falling apart, she cried. My marriage, it's over. I don't know what to do. Can you at least talk to me? He sighed. Sandra, I told you I didn't force you into anything. You knew what you were doing. Don't drag me into your wala. I've moved on. He ended the call. That was the last time she heard his voice. The same person she defended against her husband. The same person she risked her home for. The same person she thought understood her better. Gone. And in that lonely silence, the full weight of the lesson landed. Your ex is not always the villain, but they are almost never responsible for the consequences of your marital choices. They can walk away. You are the one left to pick up the pieces. Sandra eventually moved out of the house, starting again in a small apartment. She changed her job, joined a support group, and began to rebuild her life slowly. She learned to pray again. She learned to sit with her own pain without running to distraction. She learned to own her choices without blaming everyone else. One afternoon, she was invited to share her story in a small couples seminar at a church. She stood before them, hands shaking, but voice steady. "I'm not here as a perfect woman," she began. "I'm here as someone who lost a good marriage because I refused to close the door to my past." She told them everything, not in graphic detail but with honesty. How it started with, "We're just talking." How she dismissed her husband's discomfort as insecurity. How emotional intimacy turned into physical weakness. How the guilt and manipulation followed. How it all ended. Some people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded slowly, seeing themselves in parts of her story. "I want to say this clearly," Sandra continued. "Marriage will not erase your ex. It is your job to put your ex in the right place. Outside your heart, outside your daily life, and outside your marriage." She looked around the room and asked, "If your spouse picked up your phone right now and saw your chats with that old friend, would they feel safe? Or would they feel betrayed?" Silence. "Trust me," she said quietly, "no emotional thrill is worth the destruction of a home you vowed before God to protect. I thought I was strong enough to manage a friendship with my ex. I thought I could handle it. But fire is still fire, whether you light it in a small corner or in the middle of the room." After the session, 3 women and 1 man walked up to her separately and confessed, "I'm in something similar right now. There's this ex I still talk to every day. I thought because nothing physical happened I was safe." She didn't judge them. She only repeated one thing. "Please, cut it off before it cuts you." So, if you are listening to this story right now, wherever you are, on your bed, in your car, in the kitchen, let this be a gentle but firm warning. Don't flirt with what can destroy you. Don't protect old flames more than you protect your current covenant. Don't call it innocent when it already makes your partner uneasy. A healthy marriage is not built on secrecy and divided loyalty. It is built on transparency, boundaries, choosing your spouse again and again, above everyone else, including your past. Because at the end of the day, you cannot fully face forward if you keep looking back. And sometimes, the strongest proof of love for your spouse is not in what you start, but in what you are willing to end.